for your tourism offering,
Yes.
do they offer like accessibility for people with disabilities?
Yes, first of all, in our development, tourism development policy, it's a must that there has to be accessibility provided for the disabled, from the ramps, entry into different places. And we have also tasked our national parks, as one of the key destinations to make sure that there is easy access to everyone, because we really preach inclusivity with our tourism in Uganda. We don't want anybody left behind. And the common phrase that everybody in tourism in Uganda uses is tourism is everyone's business. So if it's going to be everyone's business, nobody has to be left behind, whether from the business side of things where you're providing services or being the consumer. So everybody should be able to fit in there. Yeah, whether you're disabled, you should be able to provide certain services, from crafts to accommodation to whatever. But also you should be able to enjoy it. Yeah, so we don't expect that you're just sitting in one place and providing for others, but you should also be able to take time and explore what Uganda has and enjoy it. Yeah. Tourism is the number one foreign exchange earner for Uganda, and the targets that most recently our president set for us is to improve tourism 25-fold by 2040. We have a country's vision of 2040 with very specific targets of what we should have achieved by that time across the various sectors. And out of the Vision 2040, every 5 years there's a development plan, for the 5 years what we should be achieving that will then eventually let us achieve what we have to achieve by 2040. And we are now implementing the third development plan. Now the third one is ending next year, 2025. And then we should start with the fourth one. Now the fourth one, the roadmap is already up. The planning for what targets should go in there is already there, and tourism has been prioritized as the number one. So really the government of Uganda is looking at tourism being the sector that will really transform the economy of Uganda.
Okay, us being a radio station, we are called Heaven Age Radio. We are targeting an age group between 35 to your late 50s, if I can put it that way. And we'd like to promote the Pearl of Africa by obviously maybe running competitions throughout the year, one particular period where we take listeners to Uganda and put that on our social media, just to try and create synergy and a nice partnership. So would you guys be keen to look at that?
Absolutely. We are really open to whatever kind of collaboration, partnership, that does not only promote Uganda but promotes the continent. Yeah, so that is our interest. And also for tourism in Uganda, our biggest arrival numbers are from the continent. So we know that our biggest market is from the continent. So we prioritize the marketing, the development that speaks to the continent more than to the international outside the continent of Africa. So we would definitely be very glad to see the details of how we can make sure that happens. Well, first I have to say Uganda, the brand, is the Pearl of Africa. Yeah, why are we known as the Pearl of Africa? First, let's start with defining the pearl. We know is a gemstone, with the characteristics of being beautiful, rare, and precious. And really, the characteristic of Uganda is that, for any traveler coming to Uganda, you will see lots of beautiful stuff, there are precious stuff, there are rare stuff. And what are some of these things? Of course, we talk about the rare species of birds like the shoebill stork, to so many others, to the mountain gorillas that are, Uganda has 54% of the remaining population of the mountain gorillas in the whole world. And it is only in Uganda that we have 2 national parks with the mountain gorillas. And then if you go into other primates world, we have the chimpanzees. We have about 5,000 chimpanzees in the wild. And in one of our national parks, Kigali National Park, we have 13 different kinds of primates. And it is the only place, the only forest in the world that you can get that diversity of primates only. We're first talking primates. And so, first to go back to why we are known as the Pearl of Africa. Because the depth, the range, and the variety of what you will get in different parts of the continent, you will get it in whatever small portion in Uganda, whether it's cultural diversity, whether it's the natural beauty from location. We have the equator passing through Uganda, and yet at the same time, the highest point. So we have the equator, but at the same time, the highest point in the country is right at the equator, and that's the Rwenzori Mountains. The highest peak is right at the equator with permanent snow throughout the year. So, the beauty about Uganda is that, we are at a higher altitude. That is why even, the equator crossing through the country, the weather is still fantastic. It is cool. The average weather is 25 degrees centigrade throughout the year. Yeah. So the weather is a big asset that we have. So for people who experience winter, Uganda is one of the places that you can run to any time of the year and you'll have perfect weather. And I believe that many times we take it for granted, that weather is not a very, big thing, but when you live in very harsh, weather condition, that's when you get to appreciate it. It hit me so hard, on how we have the best weather. When I visited Dubai, and I think it was in summer, I almost collapsed after walking just 100 meters, and I was like, okay, I now want to go home. It was too hot. Yeah, so that's one. Two, we have River Nile is the longest river in the world. The source is in Uganda. So you're not going to get another source of River Nile anywhere else. So I'm talking about the uniqueness, the rare things that this country has. Yeah, that you won't find anywhere else. Yeah. Even when, just to backtrack, if we are talking about the primates as well, the great apes, there's nowhere else you're going to find an habitat, a forest, where there's the mountain gorillas and the chimpanzees together, except in Buganda National Park. So there are so many rare things that we have to offer. And so the wildlife is there, the landscape from the high mountains, the peak of Rwenzori is 5,109 meters above sea level, and that makes it the third highest point on the continent. That's after Kilimanjaro and Mount Kenya. Then Rwenzori has the highest peak on the continent. When we go to the people, Ugandan people have been rated to be the most hospitable people. And I think it's based on the way we are brought up. We are brought up to, most important, make the strangers very comfortable what happened. Yeah. So that is part and parcel of us. We grow up with that. You see someone you don't know, you have to reach out to them and know if you can be of help to them. Yeah, there is always this thing of where we have so many international people find it very weird, but it's just part of us. If you're in the city of Kampala, for example, and you ask someone for a direction, yeah, they will leave their business and walk you up to where you are going to make sure that you're reaching the right. It happens all the time. Whether it's the little business person selling, nuts or bananas by the roadside, if you ask them, they will first leave their business, make sure, because they know you are not a Ugandan, so they must treat you right. So they will put you first.
That's opposite of that.
Yeah, so I'll come to that, but also to say the cultural diversity. We have 65 different tribes in the country, and everyone lives 65.
And you thought South Africa was bad.
Yeah, 65, and the beauty is how everybody lives in harmony.
How
Yeah.
many languages? 65.
Yes.
Maybe even more.
Dialects.
Yeah,
There are
maybe
different
there's more
dialects.
actually,
Yes.
How many
There's
can you speak?
personally,
Yeah.
5.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the food. Yeah. Uganda has amazing food, all organic. The fruits, I find it really hard to eat fruits in other places. Yeah, because our fruits are really, really good. Vegetables, name it. Food is another asset that we really have. We have it in plenty. It's all organic. It's all available. And it's always said that the Ugandan people are a bit lazy because they have everything there. So they don't have to work so hard. Even if they don't have to work hard, they will always have something to eat. But it's also just the quality I'm talking about. Yeah, the quality. So with the diversity of culture, of course, they're different when we talk about food, they're different delicacies. Every tribe you go to have their own delicacies. So every tribe you go to, you will experience something different. The way of dressing, the entertainment, the dancing, it's also different. The culture from how they treat, maybe how a baby is born, how a baby is named, how, the marriage, it's also diverse. Yeah, so if you just want to experience culture in itself, it's right there, in plenty. And tourism in Uganda, the foundation of it, the basis of it all, the key value is basically sustainability, responsible tourism, ecotourism. Right from the wildlife, even with our mountain gorillas, which is the premium product and highly sought after, we have put a limit. We said, all our gorilla population, we are never going to habituate more than 50%. Yeah, because we need to make sure they continue to survive. And even with the habituated group, for each family of the gorillas, there's a limit. We can only allow 8 visitors. Yeah, they can't be more than that. So we're not just about, the money, having in mass tourism where we will allow as many people. Most important as well, we have in our policies that those who work for the national parks have to come from within the area, unless it's at managerial level where you don't have the required expertise and skill and the educational qualification. Otherwise, majority of the workers in the national parks are people from within the area. And we have a policy as well, 20% of what the national parks generate are given back to the communities. So where they use that for the development of common good, common services like schools, clean water, hospitals, roads, accessibility, and some of them end up buying buses to transport their kids from the village to whatever school they are. So the community are fully part of it, right from the policy to the practice itself. So the communities are able to supply, also it's kind of, you have the food there, so why would you go and buy it from very far? So the community have been trained to provide the best quality of whatever fruits, vegetables to the lodges, where the international tourists come to stay, and they are made part of it fully. And some very unique success story we have had with the benefits that the community actually get is like when you're going gorilla trekking, it's a tough trek. You have to have physical fitness to do it because the national park is in a terrain which is, with very high altitude, and it's going up and down the valleys and up the hills. So you need that level of fitness to be able to make it. But even sometimes you start struggling. So we have a group of the young people, who are called the porters. So you have your backpack for the day. It becomes a problem for you to carry, because you're just with your stick trying to just make the next step. So these porters will carry your backpack for you, with your packed lunch or whatever. They are happy to do that because they get paid for that service. Or if you're too tired, they will be able to give you one hand and drag you through so that you are able to make it. And we have had these young people, out of what they earned, they have been putting their monies together, and they have built their own lodge, which is now being used by the international travelers. So how more successful can it be in trying to get the local people themselves benefiting? And of course, there's a lot of deforestation happening. So one of the things that we are encouraging is that for every tree you cut, you must plant and grow the tree to replace it. Now we have got the church people have come in as well to actually say, if you're going to baptize your child, you first must show us, 5 trees you have planted before we can baptize. You're going to get married, show us a certain number of trees you have planted, so that, because we need sustainability. How are you going to be able to have a shade in your compound? How are you going to be able to have fruits, in your family? It's through planting the trees, whether they are fruit trees, whatever trees they are. And the emphasis is also not just planting, it's growing trees. Because you can plant and you don't take care of them and then they die. So the emphasis is we must grow the trees. So those are some of the initiatives. Actually, we have majority of the people who work in the tourism sector in Uganda are females. They are women. And one unique thing that we have done is to train women, as guides, tourist guides. And there was a niche we found with Buddy. So it's one of the kind that we have on the continent of Africa, that we have a pool of 50 bird guides, women only. Women bird guides, and out of them, because birding is also very specialized interest, so you find that out of the 50 we have now 10 women who are not just bird guides, but they are also drivers. So they double as safari drivers and guides. Yeah, it's kind of unique because they do 21 days of safari. They will do 14 days, whatever it is. So it's kind of not very common. And we had Kenya invite us, to launch one for them as well because it's something that they didn't have. And Rwanda as well, has also opened up to now train specifically women bird guiders and tourist guides. So we are intentionally trying to involve them in all the different aspects. As I say, majority of those who work in the tourism sector in Uganda are female women, but you will find the majority in the hospitality, where there are housekeepers, there are waiters or waitresses, and that's why we are intentionally going into the other, segment of the service provision, that it's not that the women must just be in the hospitality. They can be anywhere as well. Thank you. Thank you for those questions. What are we doing in terms of the challenges we have with accessibility through, flights and visas? At this point, it's not talking about East African anymore. It's about Africa. How do we make it easy for everyone? So our starting point was for the government of Uganda to invest in a national carrier where you will have direct flight. I came on Uganda Airlines. I think when you came to Uganda, you came on Uganda Airlines. So it makes life so easy. We are expanding routes with Uganda Airlines very fast. Democratic Republic of Congo, Tanzania, Kenya, Somalia, Ethiopia, Nigeria. So direct flights really, really help, and for us that is the starting point. And of course we are also encouraging as many more other airlines to have direct flights into Uganda. And for the visa, we have always been very interested as a country to open up to the rest of the world. Yeah, and it was actually the initiative of Uganda to even have the East African visa. Yeah, and to the point where we are, that's not enough. We need to open up to the rest of the world. I think under the African Union umbrella, Uganda is one of the countries really pushing very hard. Although we have seen some of our neighbors have even opened up faster than we were planning. In terms of Rwanda and Kenya have just opened up to the rest of the world. I think that becomes a challenge for us to take the next step as well, to open up. And I think the other thing is really about the marketing. With those limitations, it also becomes very difficult. You can market so much, but when it's not easy for me to be able to access your destinations, I will not visit it. So priorities is being put on making Uganda very accessible, and up to now we have only one international airport, so we now have a target in the next 2 years to have 2 other international airports. That will make it 3. But also the other thing is to open up. We have aerodromes in almost all the towns around the country. This was a presidential directive 3 months ago, to improve them and make sure that we also have international codes for the aerodrome for the regional connectivity. So flights, from Kenya, they should not go through the international airport to access the airport. So that's one of the things. I think to the second point, really, nyege nyege it's amazing how it has grown within a very short time. And I guess it speaks to the culture of African people as well. Music is part of us. And we are doing our best, I have to say, to see how we can get this to everyone. But I will still come back to the point that the challenges of accessibility, visa issues, flights, so long as they remain expensive and difficult, it will still limit the number of people, whether from South Africa, from North Africa, or whichever part of the country. So as we try to improve our marketing effort, I mean, being here is part of the effort. I think we're in a safe place. The first time we had nyege nyege, it was a new thing. I mean, the young people are more drawn to this, than the older ones. So there were no rules to it. It was really like, let's come, let's have fun, and that was it. But the more people that it brought, then there was a concern. We are having all these young people from Europe, from all over the world coming here. What are they learning from this? Is it just about having fun, enjoying themselves with the music, or there's something behind, which is not right? And that, if you remember very well, in the second edition, was actually, it had been stopped by Parliament. And the rules were made clear. There are certain guidelines that were put in place to make sure that, we have these young people come and enjoy themselves, come and learn the different cultures, and have a good time, use it as a networking, because out of that we are having the different musicians now doing collaborations, across the continent, across the globe, because of, the connection they made at Nyege Nyege. So the rules are being set. So we are actually safe now. Yeah.
Okay, if I can end off with the last question. If you had the superpower to do anything, what would you do for Uganda tourism? Your biggest dream. You have all the money in the world, you can do anything you want. What would you do?
For me, it was what I preach to all Ugandans, to the governments of Uganda. That Uganda is so blessed when, the creation was happening. Uganda was put in a very unique, location with everything. And if I had all the powers, Uganda's economy would be a tourism economy, not an agricultural economy. 35 and above, I think it's a combination of the authentic music. There's a lot. We have some of the young people as well who are specializing in actually preserving the Ugandan cultural music. And as we know, the world is changing so fast. Of course, below 30, it's like one global culture. They are all my kids. It's like, okay, the authenticity of our own culture is not with them. But you see that with the older 35 and above, there's more appreciation for what is more authentic to the continent, to our own culture. No, the one thing I didn't mention as well, Uganda is a great destination for the young people who love adventure, from whitewater rafting to bungee jumping to zip lining, to abseiling on the falls. Mercian Falls is it's the most powerful waterfalls in the world. I visited Victoria Falls. I have visited Niagara Falls from both Canada and the USA side, but Mercian Falls is the most powerful because you have this little gorge where the amount of water which is falling down, so
From just listening to it.
And how's the issue of safety?
no, it's very safe.
Crime.
We are relatively very safe country. Of course, in the city, in the big cities, you'll have pickpocketing, the usual that happens in any big cities, but generally, but even having said that, Kampala is a city that does not go to sleep. You can get out of your house and walk anywhere at any time and you're safe. Yeah, you're safe.